So I'm going to do another viewer request. Somebody asked me to do a video about the Twitter site Everyday Sexism. And I started scrolling through it and it's like, Jesus, this is going to be tedious. But then I looked on YouTube and there's a video by the maker of Everyday Sexism. It's kind of a long video, and I don't even think I'll cut any of it out. I'll just respond to the points one by one. Now, I'll make it easier by drinking this combination of Everclear and mango juice, so I'll be getting progressively drunk while I watch it, and I would strongly suggest you do the same. Let's go.
About 18 months ago, I had a really bad week.
Wow, that's quite a memory. I probably had a bad week 18 months ago, but I sure as shit don't remember it.
I was on my way home from work one night, and it was one of those hot evenings where the traffic was at a standstill. And as I walked down the road and the cars crawled next to me, some guys started shouting out of their car windows about my legs, about the things that they'd like to do to me. And I ignored them, and I carried on home, and I got on with it, like you do.
I think you and I might have different definitions for got on with it. But continue.
And then a few nights later, I was on the way home on the bus quite late at night, and I was on the phone to my mum. And I thought at first that the guy next to me just accidentally brushed my leg with his hand. And I carried on talking to my mum. And then I realized that actually he was grabbing and groping my leg and moving his hand up towards my crotch. And I stood up to move away from him, but because I was on the phone to my mum, I vocalized it in a way that I didn't think I would have done otherwise. So I said, I'm on the bus, this guy's groping me. And everybody on that bus looked out the window, or looked down at their feet, or looked at their phone. Certainly nobody stepped in, but more than that, there was a real sense of, why are you making a fuss about this, woman? You know, this is your issue, deal with it, don't make us have to think about it.
This story warms my heart because it shows that we really do have equality between the sexes. Because I'll tell you what, if anybody was groping me or harassing me on a subway and I expected somebody to step in and do something, I mean, I wouldn't expect that because that's just retarded. I'm a man. Nobody gives a fuck about what's happening. It's like, dude, that's your problem. I mean, bad day for you, motherfucker. So I feel like we've made a lot of progress as a society. No white knights thinking you're weak and need a big burly man's help in that situation. Continue.
And that immediately made me feel ashamed. It made me feel like maybe I'd done something wrong, or I shouldn't have been there on my own that late at night, or I shouldn't have been wearing what I was wearing, and all of those thoughts that reaction triggers.
Oh, well, sorry you felt that way. I feel like what they're trying to communicate to you is, listen, I got my own shit. I was fortunate enough not to be groped in this situation, so I'm doing pretty good. If I get groped, I'm on my own with that too. It's a dog-eat-dog world, bitch. Don't feel ashamed because it's happening, but that is your problem to deal with, not mine. I have a Pilates class.
And again, I carried on, I went home, I didn't mention it, I got on with it, like you do.
I'm glad you moved past it. So what's the rest of this video about?
And then a couple of days later, I was walking down the street in broad daylight, and there was a big truck that was being unloaded, some scaffolding was coming off the back of it, and there were two guys working together. And as I walked past, one of them turned to the other and said, "Look at the tits on that." Not her, that.
Her was kind of implied by the tits, and I mean, come on, they're unloading a truck. Do you want them to be grammatically correct? Excuse me, sir, your pronoun did not match your antecedent, and also you have a dangling participle. Come on. They're unloading a fucking truck.
And they started discussing me as if I wasn't there, even though I was 1 meter away and I could really clearly hear them. So the thing that really hit me about these three incidents was if they hadn't all happened in the same week, I never would have thought twice about any one of them. And I started asking myself why that was. Why was this so normal? Why was I so used to them? And I started thinking back about hundreds of incidents that had happened over the weeks and months and years that I'd never said anything about to anyone because it was normal. And I started talking to other women and asking them, women I knew, older women, younger women, women I met, saying, have you ever experienced anything like this? And I honestly thought that 1 or 2 women would have a story, that 1 or 2 people would say, yeah, a few years ago this thing happened, or I once had a job where this happened. But it wasn't like that. It was every woman I spoke to. And it wasn't a few years ago, this one incident. It was hundreds of things. It was on my way to meet you today, this happened. Yesterday, this happened. Most days, this happens. But just like me, until I asked them, they'd never told those stories to anyone because they were used to it.
You know what happens to me quite a bit over the weeks and months and years and shit like that I never really talk about? But I'm going to talk about it now just to give you an example. I'll be driving along and there'll be a stoplight and there'll be some motherfucker asking for money. Be like, and I'm like, shit, there's a light, I can't just drive off. So I gotta look him right in the eyes and say, I don't have any money, man. This is the 21st century. I have a debit card. I mean, who has paper money anymore, motherfucker? Or something like that. Happens all the time. Don't really talk about it, though. I mean, it's a little bit of an inconvenience, because it's like, dude, I'm just trying to get from point A to point B without some motherfucker asking for money that I don't have because it's the wrong fucking century for paper money. I guess, yeah, I'm sorry. Please do continue.
Because it was normal. So I started trying to speak up about this because I was kind of realizing there was this huge problem, and I started trying to talk about it. And again I got the same response. People said, stop making a fuss. Women are equal now, more or less.
As is evidenced by the fuck you and your problem, deal with it, dude, attitude from the people on the bus, which every man deals with every single day of their life. Hey, I'm not complaining. I don't want other people helping me with my problems. I'm just saying.
And if women are equal now, then to talk about sexism, to complain about sexism, must be overreacting. Or maybe you don't have a sense of humor. Or maybe you need to learn to take a compliment. Or maybe you're a bit frigid or uptight, or you need to learn to take a joke. And I thought maybe they were right. Maybe women are equal now, more or less. Perhaps I was overreacting. So I thought I'd look into it. I thought I'd interrogate that claim. And I did, and these are some of the things that I found. Women are equal now, more or less, except that in our Houses of Parliament, where the policies that affect all of us are debated and defined, less than 1 in 4 MPs is a woman.
Yes. I don't know what an MP is, and I'm not going to look it up. I don't understand your crazy British system. I just forgot to mention, in the course of doing all this research, because, you know, these events happened that you got on with, I really want to know what your definition of getting on with things is. I mean, if I, you know, these guys were asking me for money, and I'm like, yeah, this will not stand, sir. I am going to do some research for 1.5 years and then do a lengthy TED Talk about the deeper meaning of it all. I wouldn't say that I got over that shit. I'd say I was pretty stuck on it. I'm sorry, please continue. I forgot what you were talking about, like MPs or something. Where I come from, that means military police, but...
Women make up 1/5 of the membership of the House of Lords. The UK comes joint 57th in the world for gender equality in Parliament.
I really hope you're building to a point, because I don't want to have to explain the obvious. Actually, the obvious is fairly complex, so let me just go with one aspect of the obvious. You know, guys who have a lot of power, a lot of influence, and a lot of money tend to get laid more and have more options for doing so. Where, by contrast, even the most hideous fucking woman has zero difficulty getting laid because of all the thirsty-ass niggas out there. So, it kind of stands to reason that a man would have more motivation to seek these offices and get them. Plus, you know, here you are complaining, and everybody's taking you seriously. Well, you know, a man who complains is just a whining fucking bitch. Shut the fuck up, get back to your grunt work, and die early. So, the motivational paradigm is a little bit different for the man and the woman. Continue.
And then I looked into the law, and I found that just 4 out of 35 Lord Justices of Appeal and just 18 out of 108 High Court judges are women. So I decided to look at the arts, and I found that it was reported in 2010 that out of 2,300 works, one of our most prestigious art institutions, the National Gallery, had paintings by just 10 women.
Am I going to have to fast forward you?
I found that women write only 1/5 of front-page newspaper articles, but 84% of those articles are dominated by male subjects or experts.
I'm sorry, you're going to have to be a little more specific if you want to make a really good point. Now, if you say male topics like, what do I do about jock itch? Prostate cancer, digging the smegma out from under the foreskin, dealing with male pattern baldness. If that's what you mean, then you have an excellent point. But if you're just talking about things that are typically understood to be male topics, well, then you're being a raging fucking sexist. No doubt about it. But you didn't specify, so I can't mock you specifically. Please go on.
And then I looked into the crime statistics. Women are equal now, more or less, except that in the UK, over 2 women a week are killed by a current or former partner. There's a phone call to the police every minute about domestic violence. Every 6 or 7 minutes, a woman is raped, adding up to over 85,000 rapes and 400,000 sexual assaults every year. In the UK, a woman has a 1 in 4 chance of becoming a victim of domestic violence and a 1 in 5 chance of being the victim of a sexual offence. And worldwide, 1 in 3 women on the planet will be raped or beaten in her lifetime.
You're right, that is sexism. You bitches better start raping at the same rate that us guys do. Pull your weight, for Christ's sake.
So I decided that that argument that women were equal now and we shouldn't be making a fuss really didn't stand up to scrutiny. In fact, it seemed to me that it really was time to make a fuss.
And here there's more sexism. If I, as a guy, started making fuss about sexism against men, absolutely no one would give a fuck. They would laugh at me. And then I'd try to kick their asses, but there's just too many people laughing at me, and then I'd probably get my ass beaten down. I wouldn't be doing a TEDx, I'll tell you that much. Because absolutely nobody would give a fuck. I can absolutely assure you of that. And don't get me wrong, I don't mind, because, I mean, I'm a man, so how about you be a man, then we'll be equal as men.
So I set up a simple website because I realized that we couldn't solve a problem if people refused even to acknowledge that it existed. And that what I really wanted people to have was that experience that I'd had of seeing these things kind of rolled out in front of them like a map and realizing how much there was and how bad it still was.
Now let's just forget about what this says about me and my personality, but on more than one, or actually more than 10 occasions, a lady has punched me right in the fucking face. Now, I could try to dodge it, I could try to deflect that arm, but let's get real. A little girly arm, if I try to smack it out of the way, I'll leave bruises, so I'm just like, I take it like a man. And quite frankly, I mean, look at my fucking ugly face. There's at least a 50% chance that rearranging it will make it prettier, so... But, you know, I don't call the cops, so there's some sexism too, because, I mean, I'm like, well... Bitch, get the fuck out of here. You get the fuck out right now. And then that's that. Everything's copacetic. Calling the police? What kind of fucking crybaby are you? The fucking police? I guess I have that male privilege of just being like, get the fuck out and not worrying about bringing in the authorities. Continue.
So I set up a very simple website called the Everyday Sexism Project. And I asked women and men to add their experiences of gender imbalance on a daily basis, anything from the tiny, niggling and normalized things all the way up the scale. And I didn't have any funding or any way of publicizing it, so I thought that maybe 20 or 30 women would add their stories, and I hoped that it would build a sense of solidarity and help to raise awareness.
If you really thought that, you must have been totally unfamiliar with the internet in every way. Sucker born every minute.
But instead, things took off a little more than I expected. 50,000 women from all over the world added their stories in 18 months.
Really? All over the world, you say? I'd really like to know how the women in the third world countries managed that, you know, places without internet. I mean, all of the undeveloped world doesn't have, you know, the internet, let alone Twitter. I would really love to know by what mechanism was their message of everyday sexism delivered to you. Details matter.
They were women and men from countries everywhere, people of all ages, races, ethnicities, sexual orientations, gender identities, religious and non-religious, disabled and non-disabled, employed and unemployed.
And the thing they shared in common is a computer, Twitter, and time to Twitter.
We heard from a 7-year-old disabled girl in a wheelchair and a 74-year-old woman in a mobility scooter who encountered almost identical experiences of screamed abuse about female drivers.
Screamed abuse, huh? I mean, it couldn't possibly have just been kind of a tasteless joke, see, because it wasn't about them being female, it's about how they're both crippled and in some sort of wheel device with wheels. So they're not really driving, and it's not because they're female that they're doing badly, they're just cripples. So the funny of the statement is by saying female drivers, when really they're just cripples. Is it politically correct to say cripples?
A 15-year-old girl wrote that she knew that she was clever and funny and she could do anything she wanted to do, but really it didn't matter if she became a doctor or a lawyer because she knew from the world around her and from the media that the only thing that really mattered was whether she was sexy, whether her breasts grew and her waist narrowed, and whether boys found her attractive.
So, by her own self-assessment, she's very intelligent and clever and witty, yada yada yada. Because we all know how accurate people's assessment of their own capabilities can be. If only we could test it somehow. Wait, what was the next thing you said? But she knew it didn't matter because television... She thinks shit on television is real? I'm gonna have to go ahead and doubt her assessment of her own intelligence. Forgive me.
A 13-year-old girl wrote to say that she'd been showed a video of sex at school on a boy's mobile phone, a video of porn, and that now she's so scared to have sex that she cries every night because she didn't realize that what sex was the woman hurting and crying.
And here's some more goddamn sexism. Now, of course, when I went to school, we didn't have mobile phones with video capabilities, but had that shit exist, I mean, cell phones, they looked like a fucking brick back when I was in school. Had we had that, and, like, some girl showed me a picture, like a video of some guy crying and being hurt during sex, I'd be like, it's kind of fucked up, but because I have the rudimentary capacity for cognition, I'm not going to just assume, on a fully emotional basis, that that is all of sex, or even that I wouldn't enjoy it.
This was what happened when I gave a speech about politics.
Let me tell you about another perspective here. How do I put this nicely? You're saying a bunch of silly drivel, right? You're just going out of your way to find stuff and putting it together so that you can be offended, turn it into like some grandiose attempt to change the world for the better, and any kind of rational person isn't going to take you seriously. Now, they could have responded with hostility, but they expressed how they weren't taking you seriously with those comments. They turned that frown upside down. Very pro-adaptive trait.
And this was what I got on a daily basis, but not just once a day, up to 200 times a day, just for speaking out. And ironically, these people who were sending messages because they wanted to shut the project down were just showing how very vital and needed it was.
Yes, when people routinely don't take you even the slightest bit seriously, that is obviously a sign that what you're saying is not just serious but fucking vital. Solid logic there, sister.
The fact that it was so scary for some people, for somebody just to want to talk about equality.
Oh, you're funny. Scary. Scary? I don't even know how to respond to that. I think you're, what's the psychiatric term? I think you're projectiling. Scary. I'm sorry, just let's let that sink in. I'm afraid that she has a valid issue about equality. I just don't want to talk about it because, like, it might fucking kill me. Yeah, I guess that's one explanation. I mean, it doesn't sound completely, totally fucking retarded in every way. I mean, that's for sure.
Just to want to raise women's voices and give their stories a platform, that they had to tell me exactly how they wanted to disembowel me, and with exactly which weapons and in what order. And not just that I should be raped, but exactly how I should be raped, and in which orifices, and where and when. Again,
details matter. I mean, you could have had an interesting part of your little lecture here, but you just totally glossed over that shit. You really think that's cool?
And then something else started to happen. After we had received about 10,000 stories, we started getting some which had a very different tone. We started getting success stories. We started hearing from women like one who said that she was a keen runner and she often experienced harassment, but she thought it was just the way things were. And then after reading the stories on the website, she realized other women were standing up to this and other people were acknowledging that this shouldn't be normal and it wasn't okay. And the next time she went running, a guy happened to call her over from his car and ask for directions, so she went over and helped him. And then he reached out of the car window and grabbed her breasts really hard, really hurt her. And she said she felt all of the experiences, the feelings wash over her that she normally felt in that situation.
Now, I'm not going to say that you're just making shit up. Not going to say it.
We were able to start talking to girls at universities about the UK definition of sexual assault, which is very simple. Under UK law, if someone touches you anywhere in your body and the touching is sexual and you don't consent, and they don't have reason to believe that you consent, it's a form of sexual assault.
Oh, well, if it's sexual in nature, I mean, that's a pretty easy to measure thing. It's not like a woman could possibly be mistaken. Now I know what you're saying. Well, if he grabs her breast... Shh, shh. Let me tell you a little story about something I saw on Twitter. But before all of the feminists blocked me, this one that I was following, she said, weirdest pickup line that I heard today. Guy says, you're walking slow. Why you walking so slow? Do you speak English? She thought that was a pickup line, so, I had a little bit of a back and forth with her before she inevitably blocked me, and I said, what it sounds like to me is you were dawdling in his path, and he's one of those people that when he has to weave around one of you slow-ass people, he tries to make it less awkward by saying something. But then you didn't respond, magnifying the awkwardness by roughly an order of magnitude, to which he responded, what, you don't speak English? Because, you're not talking to him? What the fuck? Moral of the story, just walk faster, bitch. He wasn't hitting on you, and anybody who isn't a retard knows that. But if this woman can totally misapprehend the situation, I am not going to say it's out of the realm of possibility that that sort of thing could happen again.
And girls would come up to me saying, but that can't be sexual assault because it's normal. It can't be sexual assault because that's what happens when I go on a night out with my friends. It can't be sexual assault because I wouldn't be able to call it that. People wouldn't take me seriously. I couldn't go to the police.
Good thing you set them straight on that. Now they can go to the police. If they feel like it's sexual in nature, they should totally get the law involved. It's not like people rub against me and it annoys the shit out of me, but I let it go because fuck it. But you know what? It's just about, I'm done with this goddamn video o'clock. Have a nice night, everyone.